Languaging and education, a scenario. Now the question is, how do we actually use languages in our real life? As you would notice that languages in our real life are hardly ever restricted to the use of only one language. We constantly code switch, we constantly use different phrases from the different languages around us. And more now, the concept of not just a language, but languaging, that is, moving across languages using multiple resources of languages, is the one that is coming up. Now let's look at a scenario to make things more explicit. For instance, you have this Tatiana, who is 14 years old, lives in Ukraine, and she wants to play a computer game. And when she presses a tab, she can see multiple languages that she can choose from in which to play the computer game. She herself has a Ukrainian mother, and she speaks in Ukrainian with her. She has her father who is Russian, and she speaks to her father in Russian. And besides that, she's learning French and English at school. If you watch the messages that she is sending back and forth, you'll realize that she is now communicating with people she does not know personally, and she is using multiple language resources at the same time. This simultaneous use of different languages is called languaging. Now the question comes about the role of television. What languages is she exposed to when she's watching television? Well, that depends, as it depends in your homes also. Who has the remote control? Which channels have been switched on? And you can then watch programs in Russian, in English, in Chinese, in any other languages. In Pakistan, there will be other options. So there are multiple languages that she will be exposed to depending on who is watching the television and depending on her own mood also. Then let's come to the languages or the registers that she will use. Even when she is using the same language, she might not use the same kind of vocabulary if she is talking to someone from a lower socio-economic background, or if she's talking to someone with a higher socio-economic background. The vocabulary that she uses to connect with those groups will definitely be different. The age groups would matter. How she speaks or uses the same language, depending on whether she's speaking to someone younger or older, will be different. For instance, the Ukrainian that she uses with her sister will be different from the Ukrainian she uses to talk to her mother, or the one that she uses to talk to her teachers or to her friends also. And then, of course, she's talking to her father in a complete different register in Russian. Let's accompany her to the school. And in schools like the same in Pakistan also, you come across a complexity of languages. Children are saying different things in different languages, bringing in home languages, and there is a whole rich scenario of linguistic exchange over there. The register is different when the child is talking to her friends about some games or the movies or some other recreational things. The language will be different. The way the language is used will be different also. And when they're talking about school, homework, debates, then the language will be different. Step into the classroom now. See what the teacher is doing. There is a standard language in which the teacher speaks, and she gives a task. In this task, as US teachers also often do, the language is controlled. You're allowed to speak only the standard language. And the teacher carefully monitors that students do not use other language. And even the best of teachers somehow at times revert to what we called initiation, response, and evaluation. Now, in classrooms, this kind of discourse in which the teacher asks a question, the child responds to it, and the teacher gives evaluative feedback is very different from how the discourse or the language is used outside classrooms. And even with the best intentions, teachers somehow move into that same pattern. Assessments, let's come to them. They are often in written form, and in written form, we need to realize the language that is used is very different from the spoken language, and the language is not accompanied by other paralinguistic devices that the children use to make themselves clear. So they need to be restricted to only standard language. They can't use gestures, they can't use other voice inflections, and we are just tied down to the standard dominant language to be assessed. And then not to talk about the teacher talk, it's teacher conversation. It's very different from how actually the language is used in real life with children and how children themselves use language. So it is here that they are somehow restricted to the use of only standard language. What does all this mean? This means that the way we teach our children in school is very different from how they actually use a whole repertoire of their languages outside in the socio-cultural context. And this is the point to think about.